Joe Blackhawk pulled his weathered Jeep into the Idaho rest stop as twilight settled over the Camas Prairie, the sky a bruise of purple and gold. The diner's neon sign sputtered, its hum lost in the wind whistling through sagebrush. At 76, Joe moved with a quiet precision, his frame spare but unyielding, the stance of a man who'd borne war's weight and time's erosion. His faded Air Force jacket, a Vietnam-era relic, draped his shoulders, its power-rescue wings dulled but defiant, each thread a marker of lives saved, battles survived, and comrades lost. A worn cotton shirt and canvas pants, mended with care, clothed a man who held little but guarded much. His boots, etched with prairie dust, crunched gravel as he stepped from the Jeep, parked beside a gnarled pine. For 15 years, Joe had driven from Rapid City to a veterans cemetery in Oregon, a pilgrimage to honor 7 brothers from his power rescue unit, Charlie 4. 7 graves, 7 vows, 7 names carved in his soul. In his pocket, a small cedar box held his relics, a saint's medal, a braided cord, and a creased photo of his squad, more sacred than any citation. Inside the diner, Joe claimed a corner stool, his calloused hands brushing grit from a chipped mug with a faint Idaho elk. The rest stop hummed with weary travelers, a logger sipping cocoa, a family with a restless infant, a cashier with wary eyes. Joe opened his journal, its buckskin cover worn, and wrote in steady script, Chubbuck, Idaho. Dusk over Snake River. Shared jerky with a stray dog. He'd filled 18 journals with such notes, quiet traces of a life on the edges. The diner's door slammed open, shattering the calm. 3 bikers swaggered in, their vests blazoned with ghost wolves patches, their steps heavy on the vinyl floor. Eyes sharp, scars mapping their knuckles, they radiated threat. "Where's the liquor in this pit?" The leader, a lean man with a jagged ear, barked. The cashier, a young woman named Lena, faltered. "No alcohol, sir. Bar's 8 miles west." "Worthless." The leader, called Talon, sneered, toppling a ketchup bottle. His partners, Vince and Razor, grinned, prowling the room. Vince kicked a chair, while Razor loomed over Lena, his stare predatory. The family clutched their infant, the logger froze. Joe watched, his coffee untouched, his face still as stone. Talon's gaze locked on Joe, the old man alone, his jacket stitched with wings. "What's this, a relic from the Stone Age?" he mocked, closing in. Joe stood, his voice low but firm. "Folks are resting here. Let's keep it calm." The diner hushed, tension crackling. Talon leaned closer, smirking. "You barking orders, Pops?" "Just asking for courtesy," Joe said, his eyes steady. Vince laughed, a harsh rasp. "Check out Captain Fossil, thinking he's still flying choppers." Razor circled Joe, jeering. "Bet he's got war tales older than dirt." Joe's hand stayed open, but his words held command. "I'm nobody. Just want peace for these people." "Peace?" Talon spat, his fist snapping out, striking Joe's temple. The blow staggered him, blood trickling from a gash, but Joe held firm, his balance honed by years of instinct. Vince shoved him, sending him crashing against the counter. The cedar box fell, spilling its treasures, the medal, the cord, the photo of Charlie 4. Talon ground the photo under his heel. "That's your piece, fly boy." Lena gasped, her hand near the phone. The logger looked away, the family cowered. Joe knelt, gathering his relics with bloodied fingers, his eyes weary but resolute. "I don't chase trouble," he said softly. "But I've faced worse than you and kept going." Talon spat on the floor. "Let's bounce. This place stinks of old wars." The bikers stormed out, their bikes roaring into the dark. Joe wiped his face with a cloth, tucking the box back into his pocket. Lena approached, offering ice. "Sir, I'm calling the cops." Joe shook his head. "No need, miss. Some debts settle themselves." He opened his journal, writing, Chubbuck Rest Stop. Ghost wolves. 3 men remembered Keesan today. The Idaho night stretched vast as Joe drove his Jeep toward Oregon. His temple throbbed, but pain was an old ally, logged beside jungle burns and fractured bones. His mind drifted to Kisan, 1968, where Charlie 4 was tasked with extracting a pinned-down platoon under siege. Intel had misjudged the enemy's numbers, and rockets tore the night. Airman White took a round to the gut, Tech Sergeant Gray lost an eye, and Captain Ellis caught shrapnel in his chest. Joe, a master sergeant, made the call, "Drop in, get them out." He'd rappelled through gunfire, hauling White to a chopper, then returned for Gray and Ellis, dodging mortars. When the evac lifted off, Joe was last aboard, his jumpsuit soaked in blood, not his own. The Air Force cross they pinned on him felt like a chain, a reminder of those he couldn't reach. He kept it in the cedar box, beside White's medal and a cord braided by Ellis. Charlie 4 lost 7 men over decades, some to bullets, others to shadows that lingered. Joe attended every funeral, standing silent, slipping away before embraces. His vows were stark: honor their names, tend their graves, live a life that earned their sacrifice. After retiring, he opened a leatherworking shop in Rapid City, crafting belts and saddles, charging civilians fairly and veterans nothing. His shop became a haven for service members, a place for quiet stories over cedar tea, though Joe rarely told his own. A photo of Charlie 4 hung by the door, labeled Kin, 1968. Joe lived simply, his trailer sparse but neat, his shop stocked with fine tools. Each year, he closed for a month to make his pilgrimage, driving to Oregon to sit by each grave, burning sage, leaving hawk feathers, and reciting Black Elk's prayers, White's favorite. He'd once told a young vet wrestling with guilt, "Fear's just a shadow. Courage is walking through it. Silence is what's left when you've faced death and stood up." Joe had no computer, no social media, just a basic phone with 8 numbers, his shop, his VA nurse, and 6 surviving Charlie 4 members. They rarely spoke, but a call meant one thing: show up, no excuses. As his Jeep crossed the moonlit plain, the cemetery's markers glowed ahead. Joe parked, touched the cut on his face, and murmured, "You boys always keep me honest." He pulled on his cap and stepped into the chill, ready to pay his respects. Lena Redbird scrubbed the counter, her hands trembling from the biker's violence. Her cousin, a Desert Storm vet, had taught her to spot men like Joe, warriors whose quiet hid strength. After her shift, she checked her phone, watching the video she'd recorded in secret. It showed the biker's assault, Joe's fall, the desecration of his relics, and his unshaken dignity. She paused, then posted it to a veterans forum her cousin followed. "Tonight at Chubbuck Rest Stop. Anyone know this man or these bikers?" In Seattle, Daniel "Doc" Littlefoot, a 71-year-old former Air Force medic, was closing his clinic when his phone lit up. He froze, recognizing Joe's pararescue wings. He hadn't seen Joe since Gray's funeral, but Charlie 4 was blood. By morning, the video had swept veteran networks, reaching the 6 surviving Charlie 4 members. Anna Hawk Martinez, a retired pilot in Arizona, called document. "That's our chief, isn't it?" "Damn straight," Doc said. "They hit him on his run." "Ghost wolves," said Michael Youngbear, a security consultant in Montana, joining the call. "Small-time thugs, Idaho to Utah. Not real bikers." "Anyone try Joe?" asked Clara Two Rivers, a former navigator-turned-teacher in Oklahoma. "He won't answer," Hawk said. They knew Joe, stoic, private, loathing spotlight. But Charlie 4 had a code: harm one, face all. "I'm heading to Boise," Doc said. "I've got tracks," Young Bear added. "Flying in," Hawk said. "Me too," Two Rivers confirmed. "Joe'll hate this," Young Bear warned. "Joe doesn't get a say," Doc said. One last jump. 2 days later, 6 graying veterans met at a private airstrip near Pocatello. Young Bear handed out dossiers, wolf routes, dives, IDs. "They're at a bar in Ogden, El Cuervo," he said. "Basic cameras, 1 exit." Two Rivers nodded. "I can scramble their feed for 15 minutes. "Rules?" Hawk asked. "No blood," Doc said. "We make a statement, not a war." For Joe, the mission was flawless. 6 plain trucks parked around El Cuervo. 6 seniors in denim and flannel slipped inside, blending with the crowd. Talon, Vince, and Razor sat at a booth, beers in hand. Doc set a still from Lena's video before Talon. "You hit the wrong man," he said, voice like flint. Talon scoffed. "What, the Grandpa Gang?" Young Bear flashed a tablet with the wolves' movements mapped. "We found you in 30 hours. That's us playing soft." Two Rivers pinned Vince's arm, her navigator's grip iron. "Joseph Blackhawk, the man you hit? Our chief. Saved us in Nam." Hawk dropped a veteran bikers union blacklist. "Every club from here to Montana knows your faces." Razor reached for a knife, but Martinez's hand locked his wrist, her pilot's reflexes sharp. "Don't," she said. Talon paled. "What's your price?" "Nothing," Doc said. "Just this, Joe could have ended you. He didn't. That's the man you shamed." They stepped back as one, message sent, and faded into the night. The video went viral in days, shared by a veteran's blog as "Silent Pararescuers Justice." Clips from El Cuervo's cameras, sourced without trace, showed 6 seniors facing the bikers, their faces blurred, the wolves clear. Comments flooded in. "True warriors don't need to shout. Those punks learned age don't dull strength." The video hit 5 million views in a week, sparking news coverage, though Joe stayed unnamed. Reporters who reached his Rapid City shop found it locked for his pilgrimage. Online, #HonorTheUnspoken trended, with stories of silent heroes, sisters who'd flown medevacs, grandfathers who'd survived ambushes. Joe's shop received boxes of mail, letters, kids' drawings, a Lakota Star quilt labeled for the pararescuer. The postmaster, a Marine vet, held them until Joe returned. When Joe drove into Rapid City, he found 6 bins waiting. "What's this mess?" he asked, eyeing the postmaster's grin. "You're a legend, Joe," the man said, showing the video. Joe watched, face blank, then returned the phone. Sorting the mail, he found Lena's note. "My cousin was Air Force. He said men like you speak through silence. Hope I honored you." Joe tucked it into his cedar box, beside the cord. A week later, a Rapid City school named its field house the Joseph Blackhawk Arena, for enduring courage. Joe skipped the ceremony but suggested naming it for Airman White. The local VFW launched a Charlie for Silence, a 7-minute vigil for fallen comrades, which spread to posts nationwide. Veterans visited Joe's shop, some for leatherwork, others for his quiet presence. He charged fairly, spoke little, and ignored the video. Joe changed his pilgrimage, bringing one struggling vet per trip, sharing the drive in his Jeep. They rode in silence, Joe sharing Charlie 4 stories, White's love for storytelling, Gray's knack for carving. The first was a Gulf War vet with night terrors. Others followed, a sailor with survivor's guilt, a medic haunted by losses. Joe offered no fixes, just space, letting healing grow in the quiet. A plaque appeared in his shop, Charlie 4 still flying. Asked its meaning, Joe gave a faint nod and kept stitching. Each year, on the rest stop incident's anniversary, he drove to Chubbuck, leaving a flag where he'd been struck, with a note, "You didn't stop me. You showed me why I stay." The ghost wolves faded, their patches shunned by biker clubs, relics of a lesson learned. Doc, Hawk, Young Bear, Two Rivers, and Martinez never spoke of Ogden. At a Charlie 4 reunion in Joe's shop, Hawk raised a mug of tea. "Some missions stay silent." Joe received a letter from the Air Force Chief of Staff, praising his eternal valor. He read it once, then locked it away. On his 80th birthday, Joe woke to find his yard dotted with flags, each bearing a veteran's name touched by his strength. No cameras caught it, no posts marked it. The veterans who placed them lived by Joe's code: do right, speak soft, stand firm. Asked by a neighbor how it felt to inspire so many, Joe paused, then said, "I kept my promises. That's all." His journal grew heavier, each entry a thread in a tapestry of memory. The cedar box stayed close, its relics untouched but ever present. The shop hummed with quiet purpose, the photo of Charlie 4 watching over it all. Joe worked on, his hands steady, his heart full, a man who'd faced the worst and chose to carry on, not for glory, but for those who couldn't. The wind still whispered through the prairie, carrying echoes of Kisan, of sage smoke, of names that would never fade. And Joe, like the land itself, endured.